Let me ask you something. You're crushing it at work. Maybe you're at a FANG company pulling down $250K plus some equity. You're smart. You build products millions use every single day. Yet somehow you still feel stressed about money. Maybe even a little ashamed you haven't figured this out yet. Here's what nobody's telling you. You're not broken. The advice you're following, that's what's broken. Today, I'm going to show you exactly how old financial rules have failed tech professionals like you. We'll break down what's actually happening behind the scenes. The structural stuff that makes building wealth harder than it should be. And I'll show you a clear path forward. There will be no guilt, no budget spreadsheets with 17 tabs, just some clarity. And stick around, because by the end, you'll understand why conventional advice was designed for a world that doesn't even exist anymore. And more importantly, what actually works when you got equity options and real decisions to make. Hi, I'm Jonathan, founder of Alpine Road Financial, and let's get into it. You heard the rules. Cut back on lattes. Never eat out. Buy the biggest house you can afford. Why? Because real estate always goes up. Maximize your 401k. Hey, these rules were written when houses cost about 3 times your income, when companies gave you pensions for just showing up, when a college degree costs $11,000 in today's dollar, not the $46,400 it costs now. But here's where we are today. That medium home now costs 5 times medium household income. And that's not because you bought too many lattes. Housing has increased 252% since 1960, even after adjusting for inflation. Meanwhile, your salary, real wage growth for the typical worker has been basically flat, up just 15% since 1978, while productivity grew 64% plus. The advice hasn't changed, but the world has. No wonder you feel like you're running on a treadmill. But here's what most people don't realize. It's not just the outdated advice that's holding you back. There's something even more insidious running in the background. Here's something I see with almost tech professional I work with. They didn't just inherit bad financial advice, they absorbed money beliefs from childhood that are still running in the background, like that legacy code. It's something like this. Money doesn't grow in trees. It's not polite to talk about money. Maybe we can't afford that. These invisible scripts shape how you feel about your RSUs, even when you don't realize it. It's why someone with $300,000 in vested equity still feels not ready to make a move. It's why a promotion or an equity refresh doesn't actually change how you feel about your money. You just recalibrate the feeling like you're barely keeping up. And then the internet shows up to prey on every money insecurity that you may have. You scroll LinkedIn and somebody just bought their 3rd rental. Someone else retired at 32 with $4 million. And another post, hey, if you're not tax harvesting every single day, you're leaving millions on the table. So being smart, proactive, you start Googling how to manage equity compensation. And what do you find? A bunch of grifters selling you whole life insurance, wrapped in this tax-free language. Crypto bros promising you 10x return. Real estate syndicates pitching passive income that requires you to be a part-time landlord with all that extra time that you don't have. This works because you've been trained to believe money's hard, that someone else must have the secret. But here's the truth. They're inventing complexity so they can sell you the solution. But it's just not in your head. The system itself is structurally harder. Let me show you exactly why. Look, I know this can be depressing. The rig game, the invisible scripts, the grifters, the guilt. But here's the good news. Once you see the game for what it is, you can stop playing defense and start playing offense. And that changes everything. Let me show you what I mean. So let's be clear out front. Yes, it is actually harder out there. And no, it's not just in your head. I'm going to show you some specific examples, and I want you to see how the system has structurally shifted against younger professionals, especially in tech. We've already talked about housing. 5 times median household income today versus that 3.5 times in 1985. But let's go deeper. College used to cost $11,200 for a 4-year degree in today's dollars. Now it costs $46,400. That is a fourfold increase above inflation. Meanwhile, that average bachelor degree holder now graduates with $29,500 in debt. And that degree you got, it doesn't guarantee you anything anymore. Let's say you do land a great tech job. You think your paycheck will keep up. Well, since 1978, CEO pay has skyrocketed 1,209%. Now your pay, it's up just 15.3%. In 1965, CEOs made 21 times what a typical worker earned. Today, they make 281 times more. That is not a typo, and it's not even close. These are the same people who said, we're all in this together during the recent pandemic, while making 281 times what you make. Look, I don't mind people becoming wealthy. I've been fortunate to do well myself through hard work, some good luck, and building something valuable. But I don't think people like me need tax advantages too. The 2017 Tax Cut and Job Act gave the top 1% an average tax cut of over $75,000 per year, while someone earning under $34,600 got about $150. That's not a tax cut, that's an insult, and it's not just pay. They're coming for your retirement too. In 1975, if you had a job with a retirement plan, 90% of participants were covered by a pension. Your company took care of you. You worked, they paid, simple as that. Well, today, pensions are extinct. Companies handed you a 401k and said, this is now your responsibility. And 72% of private workers do have some access to some retirement benefit, but only 14% of a traditional pension. Social Security, the trust fund, is projected to be depleted by 2034, at which point it can only cover 77% of the scheduled benefits. If you're younger, you're paying into that system that's giving you less and less. So while the older generations cash their full paychecks, younger tech professionals are often left holding the bag, paying into a system that is structurally set up to make it nearly impossible to get ahead. Now you might be thinking, okay, Jonathan, I get it. The system is rigged. The advice is broken. Feels a bit depressing, but what does this have to do with how I feel about money day to day? Stick with me, because this next part explains everything. So let's talk about something that doesn't show up in your equity dashboard. It's the emotional side of money. Money is not just math. It is deeply emotional. I've worked with couples worth millions who still fight over that $50 DoorDash order. I've seen people making $300,000 who feel guilty about buying a $15 burrito. I met people who track every penny across multiple apps and still feel broken. That's not a math problem. An extra $100,000 in stock grants isn't going to change how they feel. That's an emotional relationship with money. It's the stories you tell yourself when you check your equity balance on your phone at 11 p.m. It's the guilt after upgrading to business class using points. It's the silence when you and your partner avoid talking about whether to exercise those ISOs. Here's the truth. No spreadsheet is going to fix your relationship with money. Tech people, I'm talking to you specifically. You think, hey, we have this money problem. I know what I'll do. I'll build a more complex spreadsheet. Talk to some large language models, and this one will have 19 tabs. It'll pull data from it, personal capital, and it'll have a custom Python script I wrote. Has it worked? No, and it probably never will. So why not try a different way? You can track every coffee order, every Amazon subscribe and save. But if deep down you believe you're bad with money, it doesn't matter how much equity you have. If you don't shift that relationship, if you don't start seeing money as a tool for freedom, adventure, and intentional living, you're going to stay stuck. So here's the real question. If tracking every penny doesn't work and the old advice doesn't work, what does? Let me show you the fundamental shift that changes everything. Here's what's keeping you stuck. You're playing defense with your money. Playing defense looks like this. I need to track every dollar. I need to be more disciplined. I need to get in control. Look, I get it. Defense matters a lot. You need emergency savings. You need to diversify out of company stock. But defense is not where real wealth is built. Let me explain the difference. Plan defense means obsessing whether you should cancel that $12.99 streaming subscription while ignoring the opportunity to negotiate a $30,000 higher offer when you switch jobs. It means agonizing over your grocery budget while leaving $50,000 in ISOs on the table because you didn't understand the AMT implications. It means spending 6 hours optimizing your credit card reward strategy while never asking, should I actually exercise these options before the next funding round? You focus on saving $5 on coffee, but you ignore the opportunity to make $50,000 by timing your RSU sales around tax brackets. Playing offense looks different. Offense means focusing on the decisions that actually move the needle. Negotiating equity packages, not just salary. Understand the tax difference between ISOs and NSOs before you choose your equity comp package. Building a bridge account so you can walk away from golden handcuffs when the right opportunity comes. Getting your cash flow designed so one bad vesting quarter doesn't derail a year. Let me tell you about Maya and Chris, both senior engineers at the same company for 7 years. They meticulously saved every dollar. They had $85,000 in savings. Pretty impressive, disciplined, great. But here's what they never did. Neither of them negotiated their refresh grants. Year one, manager meets, here's your refresh. They accepted the grant as offered. Year three, you did great, here's your grant. They accepted the grant as offered. Year five, hey, you guys are crushing it, here's your refresh grant. They accepted. Guess what? If they negotiate just 10% more equity at each refresh, they'd have an extra $200,000 invested stock today. Over a 30-year career, that's one offensive move. Over a 30-year career, that one offensive move, negotiating, is worth millions in compound growth. They spent 7 years optimizing their grocery budget while leaving millions on the table. Hey, I didn't build wealth by skipping my coffee. I built it by understanding equity timing, tax strategy, and knowing when to diversify out of concentrated positions. And that is offense. Offense is where real wealth is built. That's where you stop feeling guilty and just start directing money towards the life you actually want. Now, you might be wondering, so what does offense actually look like day to day? How do I set this up? Well, let me show you the system. If defense means obsessing over pennies, what does offense actually look like? Well, it starts with having a system, not a budget. Budgets are what got you here. They're a bit restrictive, backwards looking, maybe guilt-inducing. A system, well, it's forward-looking. A system ensures your money goes to what actually matters while automatically handling the rest. Here's what this looks like with some real numbers. Let's say you make $250,000 a year base plus $100,000 in RSUs. After taxes, you're taking home about $210,000. Here's how to allocate it. First are your fixed costs. We'll call it $60,000 a year, roughly 29%. We got rent, bills, insurance. This is all the stuff that doesn't change. And then we have investments, another $60,000 a year, which is 29%. This is your 401k max, which is $24,500, backdoor Roth, which is $7,500, taxable bridge account for all that pre-59.5-year-old access that we need, which is $28,000. Then we do some savings. Call it $30,000 a year, 14%. This is your emergency fund, 12 months of expenses. It helps us do ISO exercises, fund for AMT and taxes. It's your walkaway money from this job. Guilt-free, spending, $60,000 a year, another 29%. This is the fun stuff. I'm talking travels, restaurants, hobbies, whatever lights you up. That's $5,000 a month to spend however you want. No tracking, no guilt. Yes, you heard that right. A financial planner is telling you that structured spending, what you love, is one of the 4 categories. Not something you do after you optimized everything else. It's simply built into the plan. Because here's what I've learned working with tech professionals. When the rest of your financial system is just running in the background, you can actually spend more time on the things you love. Once you set this up, it takes maybe an hour. You're not checking your 401k, your Vanguard account, whatever it is, every day. You're not agonizing over whether that $200 REI purchase was responsible. Your system is working while you focus on building products, leading teams, and living your life. No mint, no YNAB, no budget with 47 categories, just a plan that works. But here's the question that nobody asks. What's this all for? Why even build a system? Why understand offense and defense? Well, let me show you. It's not so you can sit at home staring at spreadsheets. It's so you can shut your computer, go outside, and live your life. Pretty crazy. When most people think about wealth, they picture yachts and private jets. Well, if that's your thing and you can afford it, great. But that's not what I'm talking about. For most tech professionals, a rich life looks like this. Maybe it's taking a random Tuesday off to hike the mountains in your backyard without checking Slack. Maybe it's taking a 6-month sabbatical between jobs because your bridge account gives you that freedom. Maybe it's deciding I'm always tipping 25% minimum. Maybe it's working on a project that matters to you, not just the one that pays, because your equity gives you that option. Holistically, these are small, specific moments, but you decide what your rich life is and nobody else does. And here is what nobody tells you. You don't accidentally stumble into this. You build it intentionally. So here's what I want you to do today. Pick one thing you've been telling yourself is maybe too indulgent. Maybe it's upgrading from economy to economy premium on your next flight. Maybe it's that $18 bourbon instead of the $12 one. Maybe it's just saying yes to that concert your partner wants to go to. Whatever it is, I don't want you to do it. Practice doing it guilt-free. And tell me in the comments what you chose. I love seeing examples of what freedom looks like for people. Got a feeling once you get a taste, even if it's just 20 bucks, you'll realize you don't need permission. You just need a plan. And that's what this whole video has been about. Building that system that lets you turn up the dial on what matters while everything else fades into the background. So here's my question. What does your rich life actually look like? And when are you going to start building towards it? Look, if you're making 250 plus with equity comp and you're tired, just tired of feeling guilty about money, are you ready to shift from defense to offense? Let's run your numbers. And we'll create a defense versus offense equity comp scorecard. It'll walk you through exactly which financial moves are offense versus defense for tech workers with things like RSUs and ISOs. You'll see immediately where you're playing small and where the real opportunities are. And if you want to talk through specific scenarios, whether you should exercise those ISOs, how to build your bridge account, or just figure out if your current plan is offense or defense, book a free intro call on my website. But here's the thing, every quarter you play defense is a quarter you can't get back. You've earned your equity. Don't let complexity, guilt, or old school advice keep you from turning into real freedom. If you want more trail days and less stress, let's talk.